Hello, welcome to Winsome Loosemore. My name is Dieter Loosemore, and you join me for a design discussion where I am finishing off the three things that give me the immediate impression of the product that I've gotten. And I started this third one last time, split it, so maybe it's four things, but I've split it into two. And it's kind of what's in the box in terms of what I'm going to interact with when I pull everything out. That's the stuff I'm talking about. So we spoke about the rule book as kind of the first thing that you pull out. Now I'm going to talk about the components. First thing, when it's a new game, is punch boards, if they have them. If there are cardboard components, I'm looking at two things. How thick is the cardboard? Same as the box. How thick is the cardboard? How easily do they punch? How well have they been cut? And by which I mean you get a sheet of cardboard with tokens or something in it and you have to push out. That's what I mean by punching out. How easily does that happen? And even if it's going easily, am I getting tears? Does the top layer of the piece that I'm punching out come off? These are just things that set me up for a mood for how I'm going to respond to this game. So that's the first thing. So it's cardboard quality, again, referring back to the box, but typically it follows over. If you've got a nice thick box, you'll have nice thick pieces generally. If you have a thin one, you'll have a thin one. And again, that's neither good or bad because it affects cost, and so I'm just stating these are things that I look at. If I didn't pay much money and it's thin cardboard pieces like Castles of Burgundy or something is super thin, but it's like £20, so you're like, oh, okay, it's a big chunky game, but they've skimped on the production, but they've made it super cheap because of that. So there's a balance to it. I'm not saying good or bad, I'm just saying the things that I look for. Now, the two main things beyond any cardboard chits that you might have are cards, if they have them in the game, and pieces, I suppose is how I would separate those two. Cards are very similar to the box and rulebook in what I'm looking for. How thick are they, and what's the finish? Again, no good or bad. There's definitely bad, but I mean, there's no right or wrong. That's probably better. Thin cards aren't as nice to play with. They don't feel as substantial in your hand. You're worried about bending them if you care about bending them. If you don't care about bending cards, then have at it. I do. I'm the annoying person at the table that's a bit cringy if people are bending my cards. I need to get over it. It's just a game, it's just a product, but it's a product I care about. And so if you're going to give me bendable, cheap, flimsy cards that are going to bend accidentally, even just as you're shuffling and something just bends over, ugh, gross, cheap production, you better have not asked for much money for that. And then you get thicker card stocks. There's all these numbers I don't quite understand, and different cores and things, and so nice thick cards, not weirdly thick. I'm going into it too much, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean. They feel good in your hands, and then the finish. Are they a shiny finish? Things like, I don't know, Fantasy Realms have just a shiny finish, and that works. That's good for lots of games. It's a standard thing. Do you have a linen finish card? Now, I prefer this. I like the matte feeling. It doesn't feel like the cards are ever going to stick together. It's much cleaner to shuffle. It makes me feel like you've put care into this. There's a reason that on self-published Kickstarters, one of the stretch goals is often linen finished cards. It's just that extra level of production to me that tells me this is going to be a nice thing. So as I unwrap those cards, what do they feel like and how thick are they? Are the things I'm looking for. Again, art graphic design we'll talk about another time. That's a bit more specific to games, to specific games. But how do they feel? What do they look like? Are they easy to shuffle? All this stuff. That matters. That tells me about your game. And then the pieces. What most people would refer to as components, I guess. Again, there are a few things to talk about here. Firstly, what are they made of? And this isn't a simple answer for good or bad again, because there's a couple of things to talk about even within that. So typically, cardboard, wood, plastic are the main things, sometimes metal, but that's usually a deluxe thing. Cardboard, I've mentioned with the punching out, how thick is it, how easy is it to scratch them or peel off the bad stuff. So they're usually some of the pieces, they're not usually the main pieces. wood? Is it wooden cubes? Is it custom shapes for different resources maybe? Meeples are a thing these days. That just means little people in a particular shape. And again, is it generic meeples that things like Carcassonne brought into the world, and that's the shape that we're familiar with? Are they different sizes? Or are they custom meeples and actually they're designed specifically for your game? Something like Viticulture, where you have two different size and different shape workers, and they're all made out of wood and all this stuff, and that's great. That's a care, that's a level of detail that you want your game to stand out, that if I need to look after this game because it's not going to be so easy to replace one of the pieces. And then within the wood, if they're coloured pieces, the typical red, blue, green, yellow maybe player pieces, how has it been painted or coloured or covered or whatever it is? Is it chipped? Sometimes you get wooden pieces and they're already broken. Even from companies that make great productions, they might have just made too intricate a shape for their custom wooden piece, and so it's broken, and that just looks bad, that feels bad, that makes you feel like it wasn't worth the money that you paid. So these are just things to notice, things that pop off, different ideas and expectations in your brain, and potentially affect how you view not only that game but the publisher. Are you going to use them again in the future? All these things. And then with plastic, are they good pieces of plastic? Again, is it just cubes? Is it plastic versions of meeples and all those things? Or are there miniatures? How detailed are the miniatures? How breakable are they? Are they different things that you can see that have a different spot? Again, relating to the insert, have they thought about how they're going to store those? But my follow-up question to that, and this might come a little bit after, it might not be my initial reaction, is the appropriateness of the material. Did it need to be miniatures? Did it need to be plastic? Could it have been wood? Why wasn't it just plastic or no, rather cardboard shapes? Why is it a 3D resin finished model and not just a tile? Why have they done this? And again, not always a right or wrong, not always an easy response to give. This would come after playing the game or maybe reading the rulebook and going, okay, it makes sense that you want me to have this tactile experience. You've given me a 3D thing, either wood or plastic, instead of just the cardboard tile or chit. Metal coins. Something about metal coins that I just love. I'm glad they're a bonus. I'm glad they are a deluxe thing and rarely a standard, although Century Spice Road, they come as standard, and my goodness, it feels good. There's a noise to them, there's a feel to them, there's something that goes, this is money, even though you don't even use it as a resource in the game, as a currency. It's just something pleasing about that. But do they go together? That game has metal coins and wooden cubes. Does that work? Does that make sense? Something like Oath recently, the version that I've got, has metal coins, resin books, and wooden character pieces and banners and whatnot. Does that work together? Yeah, generally. Where it might not work together is when you've got plastic pieces that could have been wooden or plastic mixed in with wooden pieces that could have been wooden or plastic. You'd kind of feel like there should be one or the other. But then that raises the question, this is going to keep going, of sustainability. Board games have gotten so popular that we need to be thinking responsibly and always using wood. Is that bad? Should we be looking at using plastics or metals for to save cutting down of trees and use of wood? And yet plastics, does that have a greater impact? These are things that designers and publishers should be thinking about. And, I've read blog posts and arguments back and forth on various forums and things that argue both ways. I think right now there's no definitive response on these things, which is better. I think people are coming out actually wooden is slightly better. But my question is, are they having this thought? Is it just, this is the material we use, so we used it? Or has there been a conscious decision to use these materials? So what are the materials? How good are they? Are they appropriate to the game or the theme or the experience that the designer and the publisher want you to have? And have they done it responsibly? We have to think of pretty much everything with an ethical lens. We have to. And yes, that will come up in theme. Many people have discussed. We'll discuss it another time. But it has to come up in the physical product. Is it sustainable? How much trouble are we making for us as creatures on the earth by the creation of a luxury item? And so just all these things are maybe secondary thoughts. That's why I wanted to split it off, because yes, there's the initial reaction, but some of these are secondary thoughts. Once I've pulled it apart a bit, gotten over the excitement of it being a new game, these are considerations, and they inform my opinion of the production. They inform my opinion of the producer, the publishers and the designers. What do you think? Does any of this matter? That's probably the biggest question. Does any of this matter? Does it occur to you? Do you think it should occur to you? Do you think it shouldn't? Do you have examples of publishers that you think get it right? Are there ones that you think get it terribly wrong? All those kinds of questions, stick them down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you very much for watching. We'll think of other things to talk about. I've got a massive list in front of me. We're working our way through them slowly. But yeah, those are the things that kind of trigger a first impression for me of the design of the product as I get it. I hope that was useful for you. Consider subscribing if you don't already. Hit the bell icon so you stay updated when I put out new stuff, and all the normal social media things. Follow, like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much. I've been Dieter for Winsome Loosemore. Goodbye.